Hi everybody, it's Mr. Gray here. Thank you again for another great week of school. This week we have some big things going on. The first one is we just had a field trip. If you haven't gotten a chance yet to check in with your child about the field trip, please do. It was a really cool experience, and if you're ever looking for something to do with your kids, the OCC Planetarium was really great. They said that their presentation changes every few months because they go through all the constellations, and that is changing throughout the year. So that was really cool. Speaking of that, if you haven't yet sent in a field trip donation, and you can, please do that. The $45 helps put together those field trips. As well as some other things that are coming up throughout the year, some on-site field trips. And it was great. It was great because the kids got to take the bus. Many kids were saying that the bus ride was their favorite part, and that makes a lot of sense because maybe they haven't had a lot of opportunity to do that in the last few years. So getting off campus, taking the bus, going to the planetarium was a really great experience. If you're not sure if you've sent in the field trip donation, you can always send me an email, but many of you have, so thank you very much. But if you haven't, please do that. It really helps support these great things that we're doing. Secondly, Miss Toledo, who is an observing student teacher, started when I'm filming this today, Thursday, the 5th. She started today, and she'll be here on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings. I'm still doing all the teaching. She's observing, and we'll work with small groups and check in with students. But you can check in with your student. Maybe they got a chance to ask her some questions or just chat with her, but she's a great addition to the class. We talked about it this week that not only are the kids really lucky that Miss Toledo is going to be joining us, but also she's really lucky that she has these students here and are learning from them and learning with them. So it's a really great opportunity all around, and something that I think will be really beneficial for everybody. Finally, looking a little bit ahead, October 18th is Picture Day, and as I'm looking at that list seems like a Wednesday, I think, to me. Yeah, that's a Wednesday. So I don't think we have any PE or anything that will mess up, putting on clothes for the pictures. I don't know what our time is yet. As soon as I know what our time is, I'll let people know, because that will affect, are you bringing a change of clothes or what's happening in that way. But those are all the things going on. Just a couple people, I think, haven't signed up for conferences. So if that's you, please sign up. I think almost everybody has. So thank you very much for that. In reading next week, we have been trying to grow ideas as we're reading realistic fiction. And so the thing we've been talking about in class is we're reading with an intention. All the kids in this class are very good readers, and we read for entertainment. We also have to read for analysis practice and looking deeper at stories. And so we're trying to make a big leap and trying to make that part of our process all the time now. So we're reading with the intention of writing, and specifically we're reading with the intention of writing analytically. I want to do some kind of analysis. So the kids have been working on constructing ideas, meaning I'm coming up with something that the author didn't explicitly say. This particular character is judgmental and rude because they have a difficult home life. Or not just a trait about them, but like maybe a reason, what they want, what they hope for, their motivation, some idea that I'm constructing on my own about them based on what I'm reading. And then I'm taking that idea and I'm developing it. And I can do that in lots of different ways, but we talked about using different structures. So ranking, comparing and contrasting, dividing my ideas. Maybe I'm putting things in chronological order. So there's lots of different ways to do it. All the students had at least one way they felt comfortable doing it, but using those structures to help us do that. And then finally, taking even another step forward is I'm using those structures creatively. So we have all the kids have done a Venn diagram before, and maybe it's been about characters. So I can compare and contrast two characters, but we can level that up again. We can take the two characters might be the actual same character, one from the beginning, one from the end. Then as I start to write in the Venn diagram, I might start grouping what I'm writing in the Venn diagram by color based on something, whether they're positive traits or negative traits. For instance, I could also add direct quotes. I could even, outside the Venn diagram, start putting different themes or ideas around it, and then connecting those things to things, connecting those around to the items or ideas I put inside the Venn diagram. So we're growing ideas and we're trying to develop those, and one of the ways we're doing that is using structures, and then we're trying to use those structures creatively. So we're really trying to take steps forward. There's a lot happening. There's a big step we're trying to take this week. So the kids are going to work on a reader's notebook page. They actually turn in, they've been practicing those different ideas for a few days, talking to me about it, checking in, and now they're actually going to turn one in. So they'll work on that on Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, we'll put out all of the Reader's Notebook pages, and then the kids will do a gallery walk. So they'll start to look around and see what people did really well, what maybe they would have done differently, and they'll use that to kind of set goals for themselves. I did this, but I saw others did this. I can set goals for the future and reflect on my own work based on what I did. And then they'll turn those in. We'll finish the week by going on to the next part of our unit, which starts with this idea of meaning in stories, which is closely reflecting what we were trying to do as writers. We're trying to infuse a meaning, so now we know that authors are infusing meaning into their story. And that's going to get us to theme. So we'll study theme for a couple of weeks, and then we'll have a test geared toward theme, and then we'll move on a little bit more from there. For our read aloud, we're continuing the miraculous journey of Edward Tulane. I said this last time, the book is fantastic. You can ask your students kind of where we are in the book. If you wanted to read it along, it's a tremendous book. And if you haven't read it, I'm talking to you adults. It's a really, really great book. Writing, to no surprise, is reflecting reading a lot. The kids are publishing their first narrative. We did one before, but it was a little different. This is the first narrative for our current unit, where we were trying to raise the level of our writing, and we did that in lots of different ways. So they have had time to start typing. Next week they'll finish typing. They'll work with a partner to do some editing work, some final tweaks, and then they will turn in their story. We'll do the same thing that we're doing in reading. We'll print them all out. The kids will get a chance to read some others' work, reflect on their own work, and then finally turn that in for a grade. We'll turn our attention to the next piece, which will still be a narrative, but we're going to work on how to raise the level further, including all the things we've already done. And the first thing we'll talk about is writing with the eye of a reader. So we'll read really great examples of writing, and we'll talk about how I'm going to read books and I'm going to take great ideas from authors. I'm going to notice what authors are doing and put that in my writing. Also, as I'm thinking about writing, I'm noticing what I'm doing as an author, and so I will notice what authors are doing while I'm reading. So both those things are very closely linked, and next week they're going to look very similar to what we're doing in class. In math, we are quickly moving through some operations and algebraic thinking. We're going to review some order of operations with PEMDAS, and we're going to do that pretty quickly and use it to make some art. And there's a very special way we're doing that, so you can ask your kids about that. Next week, we have a kind of a one-day project that's a little different from that, and then we'll move on to prime factors and prime factorization at the end of the week. In social studies, we have a big question that's driving our next few weeks of investigation, and that's basically why on earth would King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain sponsor Christopher Columbus's trip to the New World? So we're going to be looking at primary source and secondary source documents and using those documents to gather evidence so we can kind of write a report. We're going to write a paper that says exactly why we think, or I think, meaning one of the students, they would support Christopher Columbus's trip. They might give a little bit of their kind of judgment on whether or not that was a good idea, but mostly they're using the documents to kind of put together this argument. Like that the king and queen sponsored Columbus's trip because they're going to have a bunch of evidence for that. So it'll be really interesting to look at the documents specifically. There's maps, there's timelines, and we're going to kind of go through those systematically for a couple weeks and gather our evidence together and use that evidence to create the essay at the end. In science next week, the kids will, of course, see Ms. DeMarco. Throughout the week, we'll also move our attention away from materials that we see in the real world and more toward this idea that matter is made of particles. So kind of similar, we've been looking at, materials and how they're used, and now we're kind of zooming in further and thinking, what is matter and how does it get used in the world? So that'll be really nice. We're moving on to our next grammar piece, which I'm deciding right now between two different things, so I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be, but by Monday, you'll kind of know what the deal is if you ask the kids on Monday after school. Finally, our leadership habit for the week is going to be value others and learn from them. It turns out we don't need a specific real-world hero because all of the students in the class are the hero in this case. They're going to go into their memory banks and they're going to remember a time or many times they actually learned something from someone else. And that hopefully is reinforcing this idea that we have things to learn from others, but I have to do some work in that department. It doesn't magically come to me. I need to go actually learn from others. I need to talk to others. I need to hear it when people talk to me and take that advice. And all of your students have done that already this year in class, throughout the years past. So they're going to be celebrated for that as they reflect on that idea. Again, what a week. Fantastic. I had such a great time going to the planetarium. We had a couple parent volunteers who came and helped make that all possible, not only in our class, but in Mrs. Kelly's class and Mr. Colbert's class, and that is a huge help. So thank you to the chaperones, and thank you for sending in field trip donations and sending your kids for the field trip, because it's a really special experience. We're going to have another great week. So until then, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.